My name is Avery Walsh. I'm 32 years old. Every morning, I take my coffee black and sit by the window, where the sun filters through sheer white curtains. It's quiet here, deliberately so. I work in educational policy, mostly remote now. It used to mean something in my family. Now, it's just a detail no one asks about. They say some stories are best left in sealed folders. But mine wasn't sealed. It was rewritten. They said I was unstable. They said I made things up. They said I didn't belong in the room. But I did. I just didn't know I'd have to prove it in front of a judge. Especially not the one who used to trace stars on my back when we couldn't sleep. I wasn't supposed to speak. I was just there to observe. But then they mocked me. And he walked in. And for the first time, she froze. I was never the loud one. Not the golden child. Not the daughter who gave speeches at school fundraisers or wore blazers at 15. That was always Vivian. Vivian could walk into a room and make people believe she ran it. She didn't ask for space, she absorbed it. I, on the other hand, stayed quiet. I filled the leftover corners, smiled at the right moments, and made sure I never took up too much. At family dinners, Vivian spoke. Mom nodded. Dad poured more wine. And I cleared the plates. Once, in high school, I won a statewide essay competition. Vivian had been featured in the local paper for making junior board of something I can't even remember now. But I remember the conversation at home that night. She's got a future, Mom said, nodding toward Vivian. No one mentioned my essay. I got used to it. The overlooking. The way my name only came up when something needed to be done. When Vivian launched the Women's Education Fund, I helped draft the mission statement. Proofread the grant applications. Organized the donor spreadsheets. She thanked me in passing, once. Then listed herself as sole founder in the press release. I didn't protest. Because that's what I'd been taught, that being useful was enough. That if you keep your head down, eventually someone would notice your effort and say, she matters. They never did. Mom once told me I was too sensitive. That my problem was expecting fairness in a world that didn't owe me anything. Vivian just handles things better, she'd say, as if resilience came prepackaged in designer suits and curated smiles. I tried therapy once. After Vivian locked me out of our shared apartment during a snowstorm, said she forgot I'd be home. I ended up in urgent care with borderline hypothermia. Mom drove me to the hospital the next day. Not to check on me, but to sign papers. You overreact, she said. If people think you're unstable, that's on you. She never mentioned it again. Neither did I. I swallowed the story like I swallowed everything else, quietly, painfully, and with just enough effort to stay invisible. But invisibility has limits. Because sometimes even shadows remember what light feels like. And the moment someone tries to erase you completely, you realize just how much you were holding back. I was never the loud one. Not the golden child. Not the daughter who gave speeches at school fundraisers or wore blazers at 15. That was always Vivian. Vivian could walk into a room and make people believe she ran it. She didn't ask for space, she absorbed it. I, on the other hand, stayed quiet. I filled the leftover corners, smiled at the right moments, and made sure I never took up too much. At family dinners, Vivian spoke. Mom nodded. Dad poured more wine. And I cleared the plates. Once, in high school, I won a statewide essay competition. Vivian had been featured in the local paper for making junior board of something I can't even remember now. But I remember the conversation at home that night. She's got a future, Mom said, nodding toward Vivian. No one mentioned my essay. I got used to it. The overlooking. The way my name only came up when something needed to be done. When Vivian launched the Women's Education Fund, I helped draft the mission statement. Proofread the grant applications. Organized the donor spreadsheets. She thanked me in passing, once. Then listed herself as sole founder in the press release. I didn't protest. Because that's what I'd been taught, that being useful was enough. That if you keep your head down, eventually someone would notice your effort and say, she matters. They never did. Mom once told me I was too sensitive. That my problem was expecting fairness in a world that didn't owe me anything. Vivian just handles things better, she'd say, as if resilience came prepackaged in designer suits and curated smiles. I tried therapy once. After Vivian locked me out of our shared apartment during a snowstorm, said she forgot I'd be home. I ended up in urgent care with borderline hypothermia. Mom drove me to the hospital the next day. Not to check on me, but to sign papers. You overreact, she said. If people think you're unstable, that's on you. She never mentioned it again. Neither did I. I swallowed the story like I swallowed everything else, quietly, painfully, and with just enough effort to stay invisible. But invisibility has limits. Because sometimes even shadows remember what light feels like. And the moment someone tries to erase you completely, you realize just how much you were holding back. The hall outside the conference chamber smelled like cold coffee and copy toner. It wasn't a courtroom, but it felt like one. The Women's Education Fund was holding its annual closed-door review. Vivian had called it a routine governance session. Said I should sit in as a silent contributor. Her words. Not mine. I arrived 5 minutes early. She was already inside. The receptionist handed me a name badge. Avery Walsh, guest observer, typed in faint gray. I clicked it on, swallowing the sting. Vivian had used to call me co-architect. That was before the branding changed. Inside, the table was long, sleek, ringed with board members in silk and ambition. I took a seat near the corner, where the light didn't quite reach. Mom sat across from me, beside Vivian. She looked composed. Almost proud. Vivian opened the meeting with practiced ease. She smiled, made a joke about how far we've come. The room chuckled politely. Then she clicked the remote. A slide appeared behind her. A photo. Me, shoulders hunched, eyes tired, face mid-blink, projected 6 feet tall. Below it, a file header. Subject, Avery Walsh, Behavioral Evaluation Summary, 2015. Status, flagged, emotional instability, internal observation. A quiet cough rippled from someone near the back. Vivian didn't flinch. This was taken during a rough period, she said lightly. We debated whether to share it, but transparency matters, especially when evaluating board eligibility. I couldn't breathe. I remembered that file. Not because I wrote it. Because I never saw it. Mom had driven me to that hospital. Signed papers I never understood. Told me it was just protocol. And now, it was PowerPoint. While Avery contributed in early development, Vivian continued, the board should consider her current state before approving further involvement. I turned to Mom. She looked down. My palms pressed into my thighs until I felt skin give under nail. But I said nothing. Because silence had always been my only defense. Until the next slide came up. Another photo. Another timestamp. Metadata, supposedly showing I'd breached the fund's private server months prior. Concern for erratic access behavior, her counsel added. It was a lie. I had receipts. I had not logged in. But they'd built a case on illusion. I don't think this is appropriate, someone on the board murmured. Vivian waved it off. We're just establishing clarity. Clarity. That word sliced deeper than any insult. Across the room, someone shifted in their seat. A man. Late 30s. Tall. Familiar. I didn't place him at first, until his eyes met mine. He didn't nod. Didn't smile. Just watched. And I knew. He wasn't a guest. He was waiting for his turn. To speak. To end this. Vivian hadn't noticed him yet. But she would. And when she did, everything she built on top of my silence would start to crack. I thought the email might take days to trigger something. Maybe a polite acknowledgement. Maybe nothing at all. It took less than 2 hours. I was back at my apartment, halfway through removing my earrings, when the phone rang. Unknown caller. I almost let it go. But something inside me, it didn't ask. It moved. Ms. Walsh, the voice said. Calm. Measured. Male. This is Judge Miles Carrington. We received your submission. He didn't say hi. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't need to. I froze. Not from fear, but from the sudden weight of being believed. For once. There's a special review session convening, he said. I'd like you to be present. I'm not on the board, I replied. You're on the record, he said. That's enough. Underscore 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 underscore. The room looked different this time. Brighter. Sharper. Like it had been cleaned of all pretense. Vivian was seated at the far end, notes in hand, posture flawless. She didn't look surprised to see me walk in. She looked amused. Like this was just another round. Another nuisance to swat away. I took my seat across from her. A few board members offered tight, uncertain nods. Mom wasn't there. Neither was the woman from registration. Just the board. Just Vivian. And the man at the head of the table. Judge Miles Carrington. He walked in wearing black. Not a robe, just a suit. But it felt heavier than courtroom fabric. When he looked up, his face didn't flicker. No smile. No warmth. No trace of the man who once brushed my hair off my shoulders at 2 a.m., whispering constellations into my skin. Now, he was marble. Before we begin, he said, we have a matter regarding the integrity of materials presented during the previous session. Vivian's fingers twitched. I'm not sure what this is about, she said. Her tone, light, dismissive. I think you are, he answered. Then he opened the folder. Inside, a printout of the fabricated behavioral report. Under it, metadata inconsistencies. And beneath that, system logs from the fund's private server. Timestamps. Logins. User trails. All of it pointed to one name. Vivian Walsh. This file, he said, holding it up, was accessed using credentials linked to Ms. Walsh's administrative account. The document it contained was sealed under federal privacy laws. It should not exist in this room. Vivian laughed softly. You're trusting her word over mine? I'm trusting audit trails, Miles said, his voice like cut glass. She tried to respond, but he continued. You submitted falsified psychological records. You manipulated board access to discredit another party. And you did it knowingly. Her smile was gone now. This isn't real, she muttered. This is a setup. No, he replied. This is a reckoning. One board member spoke. Do we have legal standing to remove her? Miles didn't answer. He simply turned to me. Not as a judge. Not as an ex. Just as a witness to everything they'd tried to bury. Ms. Walsh, he said, do you have anything to add? I stood. My voice was calm. Measured. Like his. I don't need to be reinstated. I don't need a title, I said. I just want my name back. And this time, no one dared look away. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was surgical. Vivian didn't move. Not at first. Then, slowly, she turned to face the board. Her eyes no longer flashed. They scanned, calculating, cornered. I never intended to harm anyone, she said finally, voice dipped in false humility. I acted on incomplete information. The file was forwarded to me, I trusted it. Miles remained expressionless. He didn't need to call her out again. The paper did it for him. Beside him, one board member leaned forward. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is sabotage. Another followed. She weaponized private records. That's not just unethical. That's criminal. Vivian opened her mouth, maybe to defend, maybe to deny. But no words came. Because when power slips, it doesn't scream. It stumbles. A motion was introduced. Swift. Unanimous. Effective immediately, Vivian Walsh would be removed from all leadership roles. Stripped of board voting privileges. Barred from using the fund's name in any future capacity. Her signature was no longer valid here. She sat, frozen, as the papers were passed. Then, almost imperceptibly, her hands began to tremble. She looked up at me. Not with rage. With something worse. Recognition. The kind that comes too late. Miles tapped the folder once. I suggest legal counsel, he said, not unkindly. There may be further investigation. She didn't reply. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't a victory parade. It was a correction. No one clapped. No one cried. The room cleared in quiet pairs, eyes cast down, not in shame, but in understanding. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it signs documents in ink and walks out the side door. When I reached the lobby, the receptionist gave me a slight nod. A recognition that didn't need words. Outside, the sun had shifted. The air was cool, crisp, like fall had arrived early. I stood at the steps. Not triumphant. Not broken. Just still. Behind me, the weight I'd carried for years, of silence, of being less than, didn't follow. It stayed inside that room. Folded between paper and consequence. 3 weeks passed. No press statement. No public apology. Vivian released a carefully worded post about stepping back for reflection. She didn't mention my name. She never did. Mom called once. A short voicemail. Hope you're doing well. No mention of the hearing. No mention of anything, really. I didn't call back. The fund sent over revised documents. My name now listed as co-founder. Quiet Justice, printed in 12-point serif. I didn't frame it. Just filed it. Some days, I still wake up expecting to feel small. But the heaviness doesn't sit the same way anymore. I've started walking in the mornings again. Same trail. Same rhythm. But I don't check my phone every 10 minutes like I used to. I don't brace for some new attack dressed as a favor. Last Thursday, I visited the learning center we built years ago. They'd repainted the walls a soft gray. The hallway still echoes, but in a warmer way. A girl, maybe 8, waved to me from the art room. Red paper in her hands. She handed me a folded crane, slightly crooked, but proud. I make these when I'm calm, she said. I smiled. Maybe I needed one. She nodded like she understood. I didn't tell her that years ago, I made the same kind of crane. Gave it to my sister after her first debate win. Vivian crumpled it without blinking. Don't be weird, she said. No one asked for origami. This one? This one, I tucked gently into my coat pocket. Not because it fixed anything. But because it didn't have to. Some things don't need applause. They just need space. To settle. To breathe. To exist without question. That's what healing feels like. Not loud. Not final. Just real. I didn't win by shouting. I didn't need the world to clap. I just stopped shrinking to fit the space they gave me. For years, I thought silence meant weakness. Now I know, it was strength waiting for the right moment. If you've ever been erased quietly. If someone tried to rewrite your story without your name. Don't rush to fight. Wait. Watch. And when truth finally has a voice, let it speak in full. I'm Avery Walsh. And I didn't need to be loved again. I just needed to be seen.